the daughter I sacrificed my entire life to raise. I never imagined she would fake her own kidnapping just to steal my $50,000 in savings. But I'm her mother, and I was one step ahead. The very next day, I caught her laughing and shopping at the mall with a friend. What happened after that was something no one could have imagined. My name is Diane, and for 22 years, I believed my greatest achievement was being a mother. I was the woman who stayed up until 3 a.m. sewing Halloween costumes, the one who never missed a single dance recital, and the one who held Chloe's hand through every fever and every heartbreak. When my husband Mark died 8 years ago from a sudden pulmonary embolism, the world felt like it had collapsed, but I didn't let it crush us. I couldn't. I looked at Chloe, who was only 14 at the time, and I promised her that her life wouldn't change. I promised her she would still have everything we had planned. To keep that promise, I became a ghost in my own life. I'm a senior surgical nurse, a job that demands every ounce of your physical and emotional strength. After Mark died, I started picking up double shifts. 16 hours on my feet, surrounded by the smell of antiseptic and the sounds of beeping monitors. I worked holidays, weekends, and graveyard shifts. I remember one Christmas Eve, standing in a sterile hallway eating a cold sandwich from a vending machine, just so I could afford the designer coat Chloe needed to feel confident at her new school. I didn't mind the exhaustion. I didn't mind that my own back ached or that I hadn't seen a movie or gone to dinner with a friend in years. I told myself it was for her future. We had a dream. Chloe would go to law school and become the successful, independent woman I knew she could be. I wanted her to have a life of white-collar ease, not the blue-collar grind that was turning my hair gray and my hands callous. I was the soil, and she was the flower. I thought that if I just gave her enough money, enough support, enough blind devotion, she would eventually bloom. I didn't realize that by sheltering her from every storm, I was actually raising a person who didn't know how to love anything but herself. The giver and taker dynamic in our house wasn't just a phase. It was the air we breathed. By the time Chloe turned 20, the thank yous had stopped entirely, replaced by a sense of entitlement that felt like a cold draft under a door. I remember the day she got into her undergraduate program. I was beaming, ready to celebrate with a home-cooked meal, but Chloe didn't even look up from her phone. She just slid a printout across the counter, a $42,000 tuition bill for a private university she hadn't even discussed with me. When I sat her down to talk about state school options, she threw a glass against the wall and screamed that I was stifling her potential because I was bitter about my own mediocre life. I paid it. I took out a second mortgage, worked 30 days straight without a single 24-hour break, and I paid every cent. It never stopped. Last summer, she told me she needed an emergency $8,000 for a prestigious law prep study program in London. She cried, telling me it was the only way she'd get into the top-tier firms. I gave it to her, only to find out through a stray credit card statement months later that she spent 3 weeks island hopping in Greece, drinking $500 bottles of champagne while I was eating expired yogurt in the hospital break room to save money. Whenever I tried to set a boundary, Chloe had a way of weaponizing my grief. "Dad would have wanted me to have this," she'd say, or, "You're only saying no because you want to see me struggle like you do." It worked every time. I'd look at my reflection in the mirror, wearing the same navy winter coat I'd bought in 2018, my teeth aching because I'd skipped 3 cleanings to pay for her $200 Balenciaga sneakers, and I'd tell myself she was just young. I thought if I kept her world perfect, she'd never feel the emptiness I felt when Mark died. I was a host for a parasite, and I was so blinded by motherly love that I couldn't see I was being eaten alive. The day my world truly fractured started like any other grueling shift at the hospital. I was in the middle of charting a complex post-op case when my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a blocked number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something about the persistence of the vibration felt wrong. When I answered, there was no hello, just a distorted, gravelly voice that sent a chill straight to my marrow. "We have Chloe," the voice rasped. If you ever want to see your daughter's face again, you'll have $50,000 in cash by midnight. No police, no games, or the next photo we send won't be of her breathing." Then came the text, a grainy, dimly lit photo of Chloe. She was slumped in a wooden chair in what looked like a damp basement, her eyes wide with terror, a heavy strip of silver duct tape covering her mouth. Her hands were bound behind her back with thick zip ties. I collapsed against the cold tile of the nurse's station, the air leaving my lungs in a sharp wheeze. I felt like I was having a heart attack. My mind raced through my accounts, my 401k, the small emergency fund, the equity left in the house. It was exactly $50,000, every penny I had left in this world. I rushed to the break room, trembling so hard I could barely breathe. I needed to see where she was. We shared an iCloud account, an old setting from when she was a teenager that she'd never bothered to change. I grabbed my iPad, my fingers fumbling over the screen as I tried to pull up, "Find my phone." The GPS was dead, disabled. My heart sank. But then a notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. It wasn't a location. It was an Instagram notification from Megan, Chloe's best friend. Usually I'd ignore their social media drama, but the preview text caught my eye. "Best weekend ever." I tapped it. My breath hitched. It was a video posted just 3 minutes ago. There was Chloe, sitting in the passenger seat of Megan's convertible, the wind whipping through her hair. She wasn't gagged. She wasn't bound. She was holding a vibrant orange Nordstrom bag in one hand and a Starbucks cup in the other. She looked at the camera, let out a jagged laugh, and said, "Mom is totally falling for it. She's probably crying at the hospital right now. We're going to be rich by tonight, babe. Vegas, here we come." The video ended with her blowing a kiss to the camera. The ransom photo had been staged in Megan's cluttered garage. I could see the same distinctive water stain on the concrete wall in the background of the video. The terror that had been suffocating me for the last 10 minutes didn't just vanish. It curdled. It turned into something sharp, cold, and utterly lethal. The physical pain in my chest vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, crystalline ice that settled deep in my bones. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up, wiped my face with a sterile gauze pad, and looked at my reflection in the break room mirror. For 22 years, I had been a host for a parasite, but the feeding frenzy was over. I realized that if I just called her and confronted her, she would weep, call it a social media prank, and manipulate my guilt until I forgave her. No. To save what was left of my life, I needed her to be caught in a way she could never lie her way out of. I put on my nursing scrubs, smoothed my hair, and dialed a private number I'd kept in my contacts for 3 years. It belonged to Detective Miller. He had been a patient of mine during a terrifying cardiac event. I'd sat by his bed for 3 nights when his own family didn't show. When he picked up, I didn't lead with emotion. I led with facts. "Detective," I said, my voice steady enough to frighten me. "I'm being extorted for $50,000, and I need your team to help me make the delivery." We coordinated the trap within the hour. I texted the kidnappers that I had the cash. I went to a local theater prop shop and bought stacks of motion picture money, which I layered over bundles of real $1 bills. I stuffed them into an old gym bag, but tucked deep inside the lining was a high-grade GPS tracker and a micro camera provided by Miller's task force. I played the part of the distraught, broken mother perfectly over text, begging for Chloe's life, feeding her ego just enough to ensure she'd show up in person to claim her winnings. The air at Miller's Creek Park was thick and humid as I sat in my car, watching the drop-off point, a weathered green trash bin near the edge of the woods. My heart wasn't racing. It was rhythmic, like a drum beat before a march. I watched through the dark tint of a surveillance van parked 2 blocks away as Megan's silver convertible crawled into the lot. Chloe jumped out of the passenger side. She was wearing the exact same oversized gray hoodie from the ransom photo, the hood pulled low, but her smirk was visible as she scanned the empty clearing. She spotted the gym bag, scurried over, and grabbed it with a triumphant, greedy yank. She didn't even wait to get back to the car. She began to unzip it, likely imagining the designer bags and Vegas lights that $50,000 would buy. Suddenly, the night exploded. 4 unmarked police cruisers tore across the grass, pinning the convertible in a crossfire of headlights and sirens. "Police, hands in the air!" I stepped out of the van and walked toward her. The look on Chloe's face wasn't grief. It was pure, ugly terror. When her eyes met mine, she didn't see the ATM she had spent years draining. She saw a woman who was finally finished. Mom, wait! It was just a prank. We were just filming a video," she shrieked as the zip ties, real ones this time, bit into her wrists. I didn't say a word. I simply handed Detective Miller the printout of the ransom texts and the video from Megan's Instagram. Chloe was sentenced to 18 months for felony extortion and filing a false police report. I sold the house she felt entitled to, moved into a quiet condo overlooking the ocean, and changed my number. For the first time in 22 years, I am finally spending my time and my money on the only person who ever truly earned it, me. What a chilling realization it was for me as a parent, to discover that the child I sacrificed everything for had turned my love into a weapon against me. But I want to ask you something. At what point do you think I should have stopped giving? Was I partly responsible for enabling my daughter's greed? Or was the betrayal entirely hers? Please remember, what you've just heard is my story told as a dramatization, a fictional scenario created for societal reform and to raise awareness about the devastating impact of entitlement and elder abuse. I'm sharing these dark realities as a warning. Never repeat these toxic schemes. Never allow manipulation to disguise itself as love in your own life. In the end, I've learned something the hard way. Karma always finds a way to balance the scales, and justice, though cold, is sometimes necessary for healing. If my story taught you something valuable today, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to join this community for daily insights.